Welcome, weather page followers, and this is I will deem this your 2021 hurricane season outlook. So I'm going to try to do this every year now going forwards, just before hurricane season. Give you guys a synopsis of what we can expect for the 2021 hurricane season. So we'll start off by showing you a graphic here with the storm names this year that we will start out with. If we should go through a situation like we did last year where they moved into the Greek alphabet for, I don't know, maybe the second or third time in history, then we will not use the Greek alphabet anymore. We will be using a secondary list of names now, which you will see here. So, shall we go through that first list, primary list? We will move into this list instead of using the Greek alphabet. So, I think this is a great idea. Um, you know, you had last year, we worked through the Greek alphabet by the time September hit, and we were retiring names technically for major hurricanes. So, it's kind of weird if you have to retire a Greek alphabet name when you're going to have to probably use those again. Whereas a list like our, primary list, they rotate the names out every 6 years. When there's a category 3 or higher storm that makes landfall, they'll usually retire that name and then it gets replaced on the next cycle. So that's how they're going to do it moving forwards. Don't get me wrong, I think they get a little crazy with naming storms these days. It seems like they name every hurricane or every thunderstorm cluster they find in the sea these days. Technology has a lot to do with some of this stuff too, whereas they didn't have the technology that back then that they do now. So obviously you're going to get more names. I don't I don't think it means that we're just getting more hurricanes as time goes on. It's really not necessarily the truth. I mean, there's been some research done by some good scientists that shows that all of this just goes in cycles over decades. It goes up and down depending on the weather phenomenon and patterns going on at the time. So um, I'll tell you here, we're not going to sit here on this weather page. Another reason why I, decided to start my own weather page is I've always been a long time weather follower since I was a young child, with hurricane maps in my bedroom and tracking hurricanes. Originally born in Florida, so following hurricanes is just, second nature, really. So, most exciting time of the year for me personally. And we like I said, we're not going to fear monger everything here. I'll leave that for the weather channel and the news outlets like CNN and all your big news outlets and all their weather guys that like to blow things out of proportion and make a big deal out of everything. We have thunderstorms that are worse than some tropical storms that we've seen come around our state or come over us. So let's take it. When we talk about fear mongering, let's take for an example this guy here, Mike Seidel, that's been working for the Weather Channel for a very long time. A couple years ago, he was covering Hurricane Florence in the Carolinas. I'm going to play this video here for you. But you can watch this guy kind of just stretch the truth here. And, this is good for ratings, with their channel. Actually, I need to roll this back so you can see from the beginning here. So this guy's pretending like, he's getting blown to bits here. You'll see them post here some estimated winds. 29 miles an hour right now it's blowing. This guy's, moving around here at 48-mile-an-hour gusts. Look at these kids back here walking casually on the concrete surface while this grown adult is struggling to keep his footing on ground. So, this is what I'm talking about, though. Okay, so that's fear mongering. That's ratings for TV. This is what these guys do. They got nothing else better to do. You get a little storm somewhere, they're gonna make a big deal out of it. So we're not gonna do that here. Not gonna try to freak people out to go rush to the grocery stores and all that stuff. Unless there's a really big deal going on. Unless we really got something to worry about. We're not going to do things like what they're doing with gasoline right now. I don't want people to do that. And technically, you should always be prepared for hurricane season before it gets here, or at the very start of it anyway. And that's why I'm going to bring this graphic here up. Let me make sure I'm still
A
being
different future
recorded.
starts with
Okay,
you.
so good
That's
deal.
why GoDaddy does
So
more
let's
than help you
close
find a
out
name.
this
You
YouTube
can create, sell, and
commercial.
get
We're
found
done
on.
with YouTube. All right, so let's take a look at this hurricane safety checklist. Just some quick supplies. I know I got a lot of New York fans now and friends that I've done, especially that I've done insurance for. By the way, I'm going to throw myself a little plug here real quick. So let me see here. So by the way, if you are in need of insurance, I can definitely help you. This is my website. You're able to go on there. You need to make sure you got proper coverage for your home, especially going into hurricane season. Like I said, this is my website. I do pretty much everything in auto home business. The big deal right now in the marketplace is homeowners insurance. I know we all know, unless you're hiding under a rock, rates are through the roof thanks to weather issues. Yeah, believe that. Hurricane Irma 2017, we're finally through the damage that caused on the books for hurricane or for insurance carriers for all these roofs that everybody got. And if you didn't get one, I'm sorry. You should have took a look at your roof after Irma. That would have been your best opportunity to get one. But now people are trying to file claims and they don't really have any damage. It's just because they didn't keep up their roof in the first place. But if you need a quote for insurance, you can go on my website, www.buddyandjersey.com. Like I said, make sure you're properly covered. You have hurricane coverage. Try not to get a high hurricane deductible. Otherwise, you're going to be paying for your roof out of your pocket. Another thing that everybody really looks for this time of the year is flood insurance. Now, keep in mind, if you're going to look for flood insurance, you need to do it early, because the way flood insurance works is they make you wait 30 days unless you purchase the insurance through a private carrier, where it's like maybe 7. So, and also if you purchase a flood insurance policy, you're going to have to stay in that policy for the entire year. And even if you don't want to, you're not going to get your money back. That's how that works. That's because they find that people in the past, and we can totally see and we definitely know that that's everybody always finds every loophole they can to scam a system. So people would sign up for a flood policy and keep it through the course of the hurricane season and drop it. And, carriers get tired of doing that, so you're stuck with the policy for the whole year, whether you like it or not. So that's my insurance website. That's my plug for my site. So if you need anything when it comes to insurance, just let me know. I can help you out. So let's get back to business here. So this is going to be the hurricane season forecast, and this is put out by Colorado State University. As you can see here, they've got us set up for a forecast of 17 named storms, 8 of those being hurricanes, and they're predicting 4 of those to be major hurricanes. Now, you can see in the middle chart here, this is your average. So obviously, even for 2021 predictions, they're predicting that we will be above average. And then you can see over here where we were for 2020. Look at that, 30 named storms, 13 hurricanes, 6 major. So yes, it was a busy season. I don't know. Maybe in Florida we really couldn't tell that it was. We had a couple threats. We were really lucky, and we didn't get anything significant here. Poor Louisiana, though. I mean, they got slammed. What did they get? Like 4, 5 hurricanes. So. But keep in mind, it doesn't take a busy season to get a hurricane or a major hurricane, significant hurricane in your area. Don't tell anybody that went through Hurricane Andrew in 1992 that that season was quiet and nothing happened. It was, on average, on the record, it was, compared to average, it was a very quiet season. And they didn't get their first storm until August. What was it? Maybe the second week of August when Andrew was named, and then August made land or Andrew made landfall on the 22nd of August of 1992. And as at the time it was rated a Category 4, and then about 10 years after that, they finally determined that it was a Category 5 on landfall. So, then obviously we all know what happened down in Homestead when that came through. Anywhere in the path of the eye wall of that storm was like an F5 tornado that came through there. So, like I said, it doesn't take an active hurricane season to get a significant hurricane in your area. It only takes one. Only takes one storm to make it a season to remember. So, always keep that in mind. But, they're saying it's going to be an active season. We are technically still in what they call a La Nina pattern. So, I'm going to take you to I don't know, maybe we didn't go through this checklist real quick. Like I was saying before, we got a lot of new folks in Florida that are, from out of state. A lot of people moving into Florida um, that are from up north, New York, New Jersey, Michigan, Ohio. So what you want to do is, and I'm gonna post this on my weather page. You want to make sure you got a good idea of what you should be stocking up on, and don't do this last minute when we're getting threatened. People always do it. It's like they wait for the Weather Channel to tell them that the storm's coming, or the local weather news media station to put them in the hurricane cone. But this is stuff you should have at your home. You live in Florida. You never know. Hey, what if the power goes out anyway? It's good stuff to have. You got obviously water. You want to always have water on hand, vitamins, first aid supplies, um, anything that non-prescription drugs that you have to take. All kinds of tools and supplies. You can go through this list on your own at your own leisure. Like I said, I'll post it on my site, on my weather page. If you got kids, you got to make sure your kids have supplies. Don't forget your pets. Pets, need their items as well. They're going to be inside with you for a while, especially if there's not going to be any power for days, weeks, whatever it's going to be. Get yourself some entertainments, maybe some board games to play. Anything that you're not going to need the electricity for. Make sure you before the hurricane season starts. A good idea to take photos of your personal belongings in your home. Even take pictures of the outside of your home, the inside of your home, especially if you never know. One of these days we'll get that Category 4 or 5 just because we live here in paradise. It's the price we pay to live here, so it's inevitable. It will happen one day. So just keep that in mind. Just things to this list to just give you some ideas of things you should be in stock on. Like I said, don't wait to the last minute. Pile up at the grocery store. I can say that a million times though, and I know you people are going to do the same thing. So take care of yourself. Let's go to a satellite photo. I just want to point out a few things before I show you some more graphics here of what we're looking at for this hurricane season. I don't try not to miss anything. Try not to, make the video too long so nobody falls asleep on me. But all right, hey, what are we at? May 11th. As you know, hurricane season starts June 1st, ends November 31st. June, July, usually your quiet months. The areas that you usually get development when it comes to tropical storm and any hurricanes would be your Gulf of Mexico, and down maybe in the Caribbean, and maybe just off the coast of Florida here and off the coast of the Carolinas. What ends up happening is a lot of these cool fronts that are still dropping down, not really a cold front anymore, but frontal boundaries, they'll end up, as they get down here into Florida and down in the Florida Straits, they'll end up stalling out actually. And what happens when they start stalling out like that is you'll get right along, let's go back a little bit. Let's say you get a little boundary right here and it just kind of stalls out. What ends up happening sometimes is you'll get a low pressure that'll form on that boundary anywhere around there, and then that could turn into a tropical system. So usually, what happens early on in the season, like I said, you'll get the close to home areas that you have to look out for tropical formation. Um, and then the pattern of those, if they develop out here somewhere, they usually go out to see Gulf of Mexico. You can get some stuff that actually goes into the Gulf Coast, or to come across Florida over here too. So those are some areas of interest. Even down in the Caribbean, you may have some action down in there, and that's another time where you got to watch where they'll go like this, or they could catch on to an old boundary and they come up this way too. So early in the season, usually not too busy. You'll get maybe a couple storms per hurricane season that forms in June and July. Total altogether, last year was obviously more. We'll see what happens this year. As far as early indicators on what we are looking at for the hurricane season is last year. Now, keep in mind, last year, a lot of the action. Now, when you get into August, especially mid-August on through October, you'll move into what they call the Cape Verde season. So you'll get storms that will form out here off the coast of Africa. These big, large tropical waves will move across, and then they'll start, gaining some some spin from them, and they'll turn into tropical systems, tropical wave, tropical depression, and develop into storms and hurricanes. So those are what we call Cape Verde storms. Those are your big boys. Usually that they got a long track to make across the Atlantic, and they have a lot of room to grow, a lot of warm water by the time mid-August hits, and that's where you get a lot of your major hurricanes, is in the deeper part of the hurricane season. So now, all these storms that form out here in this area are always controlled by what they call the Bermuda High every year. So that positioning of that high makes a big difference in every hurricane season. And in every hurricane season, that high pressure relocates itself periodically through the season. So for the major portion of the peak of hurricane season for 2020, you had a lot of these storms that rolled across the Atlantic here, and they went right through the Caribbean, and then, as you remember, Louisiana got smacked about 4 times, and then you also had a lot of storms that went right into Central America. They got hit quite a bit too. So didn't really have a lot of storms that messed with the northern, Caribbean island chain, or Puerto Rico, or even the Bahamas, um, and did anything like this. A lot of the storms stayed on the path down here. And the reasoning behind all that was your location of the high at the time. So last year, the high was more located in an area like this, and it was further south than it normally was. And so what would happen is, and this would be the isobars around the high. So the storms would roll off the coast of Africa, and then this high pressure would keep them compressed to the south. And so they weren't able to lift north at all. They stayed just below it was a very strong high too. So they stayed below, and they kept rolling until they got into the Caribbean Sea. And then eventually, like I said, they rode around the periphery of this high pressure. Or we would have a front that would drop down out of the U.S. and would pick these things up. So let's say we had a system, a storm right here. Let's pretend this is a hurricane moving in there, and you'd have a boundary, frontal boundary swooping down. So this is the one thing that boundaries can, low front, cool front systems can actually erode a high pressure system. And what ends up happening is it creates a weakness in the periphery of the high, and it will break it down. So then what will happen is the frontal boundary will pick it up, as these storms like to find weaknesses in these currents, steering currents, and they typically get picked up by these frontal boundaries. And so that's what was happening with some of these. Front boundaries were dropped down, pick it up, and take it right into the Gulf Coast here. Louisiana, like I said, had a lot of action last year like that. So, but the majority of the season, especially during the peak, like I said, you had that high just dominating out here in the Atlantic, just forcing all these storms to head straight west. Now, the difference this year so far, preliminary, diagnosis is showing that the high pressure is actually located a lot farther north right now. So, what happens when that is set up is you'll get a situation where these storms, if it was the peak of the season, now this could change. This high could change its location. It might drop down further south. We don't know. You have to wait till we get there. But if we were in the peak of the season with a high pressure that far north, what would really happen is a lot of these storms would roll off the coast of Africa, and then they're going to start catching on to the periphery of the high pressures, and then just ride around the peripheries of that. So where they would go, whether they would go into the east coast of the U.S. or not, just depends on how close this high is to the U.S. So the closer it is to the U.S., then the farther west these storms would get. A high pressure further out is going to allow the storm to curve out to sea a lot sooner. But now, like I said, was mentioning, if you get a high pressure more in this general area, and then you have the isobars, peripheries around it, then you're going to get storms that would go more like this. So it's always a positioning of that high pressure. And then also later, as we get into the season, you also have at play frontal boundaries that come down and pick these things up and erode the peripheries of these high pressures. So that makes a big determination on how these things are steered. Now, the water's always warm. So let's look at just a couple graphics here real quick. Let me see, get the cursor here. So there's some preliminary maps that's been put out for projections of what we could look at during the peak of the season. This map here, actually, this is 2021. I thought this is the one that said, okay, well, they both did 2020. Okay, so this map is the one from 2020. Okay, it was just posted in 2021. That's why it says 2021. But if you look over here, it actually says, oh, it changed on me. Just a minute. Let me get my bearings right here. I'm sorry. It closed out. That's okay. We don't need it. We'll go without it. So the map that just closed out, it was actually showing a lot more moisture along this area right in here. Deeper moisture. The dark greens here will show you deep tropical moisture and where the most rain is projected to fall. So if you're looking at this map, this is for 2021, as you see right up here, projections 2021. This is where we're projected to see the highest moisture content. So you got a lot out here in the central Atlantic. When you see this brown, this is dry air, Saharan dust most likely. And then if you look over here near Florida, you got a lot more moisture pockets here. It could be just, those moisture pockets could be from just your typical afternoon thunderstorms that we get in Florida, or it could be from tropical systems that the long range models are picking up on. So you don't really know. Like I said, the biggest difference between this map from this year and last year is you would see, maybe I ain't gonna mess with it, but you'd be able to see on last year's map, there was a lot more moisture pocket. Dark greens were going all through this area right here, which was pretty accurate because that was the storm track last year. A lot of them took that southerly track, and that was the reasoning behind all the dark green shaded areas. This year, you're seeing a lot more in here, which could indicate a lot more Cape Verde storms making that, that track that just goes around that big high pressure out there. So, but like I said, you still got that pocket over here too. So we'll have to keep an eye on what that could possibly mean, especially during the, later as we go later into the hurricane season. So let's pull up another graphic for you. And this one okay, so let me explain this one. So on this one here, you'll see this dark blue shaded area. So this is predicted for August through October of this hurricane season. So if you look on the key on the map, you'll see where the darker shaded areas represents rising air, whereas the brown shaded areas is sinking air. So if you didn't know it already, it takes more, and everybody always talks about warm ocean waters. Well, it takes a lot more than warm ocean waters to bring together the perfect storm, sort of say. Warm ocean waters is only one part of the ingredient to make the perfect storm. So in order to have a successful, well-breathing storm, you are going to need a number of ingredients. So one would be warm water temperatures, ocean surface temperatures. That's the no-brainer that everybody always, oh yeah, the waters are so warm, storms. It takes more than that. You got to also have rising air in the atmosphere and vorticity spin you have to have in the atmosphere. And you also have to have light shear in the upper atmosphere, very light shear. So, and then you got to have moisture. It has to be like that map that I just showed you before. There has to be moisture content out there. It can't be, dust, Cape Verde dust. No, storms don't breathe in that sort of environment. So there's a number of ingredients that goes into these, and now this map shows rising air, and rising air is what hurricanes need. Rising air helps them breathe and form and develop. So this is actually predicted in August through October, and this is the breeding ground of your Cape Verde storms, Africa. So you can see that there's a lot of rising air predicted to be over the continent of Africa during the peak hurricane season. So that will enable the development of multiple systems moving across the Atlantic that we would probably have to keep an eye on. Now, how many of them actually make it, further west is yet to be determined, because that part will be controlled by that high pressure system, and what they call the Bermuda High. So that's just another. This map just represents another component of what we could be looking at as far as how active the season can be. I'm not doubting right now that we won't have an active season when it comes to storms, because the ingredients are in play there. It's a La Nina type year where you get the warm ocean waters in the Atlantic, the cooler waters in the Pacific. But like I said, a number of other ingredients are going to have to come into play as well. So let me see if I got another graphic to pull up for you. So this is the other. So this one also represents precipitation forecasts around the peak of hurricane season in September. And you can see that the majority of the precipitation is picking up is in the central Atlantic. So really, and right off the coast of Africa too. So really what it's telling you, and you got some down here too in the Caribbean, what it's really telling you is you're going to have, it's probably going to be a lot of tropical systems in this area, this central area of the Atlantic, which could mean a lot of fish storms. But you also got a pocket right over here near Florida too. So, like I said, that could be afternoon thunderstorms, or it could also be from storms that form down here in the Caribbean and work their way up towards Florida. So too early to tell, but it's just kind of a synopsis of what we might be looking at as we move into the hurricane season. So let me close these out for you. That might be about all the graphics that I have to show you. Let's see. And it's going to be one of those seasons where we can expect a number of named storms, but just because you have the number of named, an active season when it comes to a number of named storms doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get a storm in your neck of the woods. So, it's hard to say when it's this early on, but the expectations are there for there to be a number of named storms. Like I said, it's just going to be a matter of how and where that high pressure is going to be set up, the big old Bermuda high, and you know um, whether they're going to be able to get around that and how close they'll be to Florida. Will depend on the location east and west of how that high pressure is set up. So um, I'll be here for you whenever there's a threat during the season. It's a lot easier to try to figure those things out then when you actually have something going on. But until then, enjoy this quiet time. It's always an exciting time of the year, especially for us people that love the weather. Don't let the news outlets, weather station, weather channel, whatever, spook you. I'll try to always steer you in the right direction, keep you from panicking. Just use an eye test and pay attention to the right place. So, all right. I mean, I'm happy to share this with you guys, and keep an eye on my weather page throughout this season, and let's get through another hurricane season. All right. We'll talk to you guys soon.